Good afternoon, everybody. This is Hell's Unicorn once again, back after a fairly long hiatus. I apologize to all of you for that, and I'm going to basically provide all of you with a little stream of consciousness reflection of what just went down yesterday. As all of you know, I am a poll worker, and I have been for the past 3 years in my local municipality here in eastern Pennsylvania. And I have overseen every type of election except for a presidential election. That is the one thing that I was not present for back in the 2008 period. I was involved in the subsequent local elections that came in 2009 and from there on in. So I had not been a witness to the massive voter turnout that usually comes with a presidential election. We have 1,800 registered voters in my municipality, and over 2/3 of them showed up to vote. On every other election that we've had, with maybe the exception of the midterm federal congressional elections in 2010, we have had less than 1/6 of our total registered voters show up for elections. That means that roughly 1,500 people in this municipality couldn't be bothered to show up for a few lousy minutes to determine who's running our school boards, who's on our board of supervisors, and so on and so forth, which I find incredibly ridiculous, but not altogether illogical when considering all things in their entirety. People in this country, I would argue, are to some extent trustees to a secularized religion. Many here on YouTube in the anti-statist community refer to it as statism. And the higher you go up in the grand pyramid, which is the current American state, I use that with reference to the federal government, the stronger the idolatry. Why is it that when people are on the ballot that are the next rung down from the president, only 1/3 of the electorate shows up, which is what happened in 2010 in my particular municipality? How does this make any sense whatsoever? Well, with any topic where strong religiosity is involved, logic can be used to analyze the results of what happens, but it really isn't much of a factor in the cause, except for maybe with a sort of an outside looking in view. I don't think it's really possible to fully deconstruct how or why people are addicted to this mode of government and feel a need to express themselves through a vote only in the highest office possible. We can describe what it is, but why and how it is a bit more difficult. Some of it could be tied into the nation's history. I mean, we were once colonies subject to a constitutional monarchy over in England, and I think to a large respect the presidency represents an attempt to recapture that, but without the outside influence of England being involved. But I can't really describe the results of this election even in those terms, because we're not really dealing with a classical monarch, but more of a de facto monarch that's more in line with a massive tribal chieftain. There was a video that was put up recently by Fringe elements that I'm going to link to in the description that I think to a good degree touches upon where I'm going to go with this, although I don't think I'm going to be quite as blunt as he was with this. I listened to ABC News on my car radio while I was driving my election results up to where the votes would be counted in the nearest major courthouse, district courthouse to be precise. And all that the people on ABC could fawn over was how fundamentally America had changed from a white Anglo-Saxon society to a multicultural society. Doesn't matter whether or not I think that this is actually the case and what's actually going on. The thing that's important is that is what the media thinks, and that is what they are pushing. So the notion that this kind of a discussion is out of bounds, I think, is a viewpoint that should not be tolerated. We should not be entertaining any level of dismissiveness when it comes to this. Race I would argue, has much more to do with this election than a lot of people are going to give it credit for. And by the same token, there are other things involved also. The gender thing. I mean, one of the key things that gave Obama his victory here in Pennsylvania, something that I didn't see coming, was a huge turnout from women voters in the Philadelphia suburbs, which completely overran any opposition that he had in the coal regions with Democrats over there. Obama did not do well with Democrat voters where I live, and I have a feeling he did less better further north and to the west where there's more oil fracking and coal mining going on. I had predicted that Romney would win the election in large part because I thought that Romney would have been able to cultivate the coal miner vote in this state, and I think to a degree he failed in doing that, and he also failed to undercut this war on women nonsense that was going on. And in my personal opinion, and people can feel free to call me a misogynist for saying this. I really don't give a shit at this point. But from my standpoint, there's a reason why women were kept from being allowed to vote before the early 20th century. Most of it had to do with the fact that most of them didn't own property. But I would argue that it was not really necessarily something to do with their lack as property owners, and more to do with the fact that women, by and large, are much weaker when it comes to applying logic in actual problem-solving situations. If you doubt me on this, you can feel free to take a look around. You know, go on to websites and listen to what most politically active women say and try to square it with reality, and I guarantee you will have a hard time. Most of us men would think that a guy going around saying, vote with your pussy, was being patronizing and being insulting towards women. But apparently, when it comes to Philadelphia, that wasn't the case. Likewise, states that had marijuana legalization on the ballot, such as Washington and Colorado, and they were passed, went for Obama. Now, I can understand them not going for Romney or only voting for Romney because he's not Obama, but supporting Obama is something I have a hard time swallowing given the massive crackdown that's been going on by the DEA in California on legal marijuana dispensaries. This does not make any sense to me whatsoever. But then again, these particular supporters of legalized marijuana might have been high when they were voting. I'm not knocking people's efforts to get marijuana legalized. I support that. What I am knocking right now is the fact that these people have no idea how to actually organize themselves politically and get it done the right way, in light of the way they seem to have voted in this election. When it comes to the current cultural state of this country, I think that it has to be conceded that things are not going to get better anytime sooner. And I think that a lot of the predictions that people like Peter Schiff, Ron Paul, and a couple of others have made will come to pass. It is inevitable. I think it would have been pushed down the road maybe slightly with a Romney victory or with a Senate pickup, but with the way this turned out, the thing about this is not necessarily that Obama won, because I wasn't in the tank for either of these guys. I actually voted for Gary Johnson, and I did it because it was the right thing to do. I didn't do it because I thought he would win. I was hopeful that he would get up to 4 or 5% in the presidential election. He barely eked out a 1%er. That's very unfortunate, but it's what happened. But when you look at the economic breakdown of things right now, the fact that almost half of the people that vote in this country basically leech off the system, this is completely unsustainable. And the monetary policy, which did not get discussed at all in the debates, you have to wonder whether or not the people that live in this country give a shit. at all beyond their own stomachs and their own individual wallets. These people have no idea how to see the big picture and how to see how their congressman bringing home the bacon or sending their sons and daughters over to cause mayhem in the Middle East might come back in a bad way at some point or time. Nobody thinks that way, and I would argue it's not because they won't, but because they can't. I don't think they have the intellectual capacity to comprehend that. And as such, a few years ago I did have an epiphany and I started to doubt the idea of universal suffrage, but I think that in a reformed America where stuff like this will be avoided down the road, a couple things are going to have to be changed. One of them is that we have to give up on this idea of universal suffrage. Anybody who does not own property, who doesn't own a house, has no business voting. If you're the beneficiary of property taxes and you don't own a property, you're leeching off the system. Furthermore, I don't support completely getting rid of welfare either. I think that there are people out there that need it, people that are either not able-bodied or otherwise in a situation where they need a grace period to get back on their feet. But I am going to say this right now. Anybody who is able-bodied and anybody who could potentially take a job but refuses and decides to leech off the system should be required to, one, not be allowed to vote, because if you're going to take free money, you're going to pay for it somehow. After a period of 6 months, if this person has not found some kind of menial job, I would argue that this person should have to recite a pauper's oath in full view of everybody else living in their neighborhood and community, stating that they are a leech, they are a parasite, they have amounted to nothing in life, and that they are ashamed of it, and that they are trying to do everything that they can to get out of it. If that does not do the trick, then you should increase the punishments further. If somebody's on welfare for over a year and they're showing no signs of trying to get back on their feet, take away their ability to sue somebody. That, I guarantee you, will get most people off their asses. With regards to the actual mechanics of the presidential election and the ultimate reason why I think Mitt Romney lost, 3 things need to be made crystal clear to everybody who was in the can for Romney from the beginning, or who were Tea Party people who were anti-liberty and part of the Glenn Beck crowd who latched onto him after all the other idiots had dropped out. You gotta knock off the warmongering. It doesn't sell, especially to people like me, and more so to people younger than me. The notion that we just go around and we bomb everybody that we don't like or who won't kowtow to us is ridiculous. I know it's a product of the military-industrial complex, and that if we're not building weapons and using them, we're selling them to somebody else. Well, then I think the military-industrial complex needs a few cutbacks. I think we need to stop no-bid contracts to people that build drones, and then maybe I won't have to deal with them flying around my house. Just a little food for thought on that one. Number 2, with regards to civil liberties, my good friends in the Republican Party, you ran a candidate that was in lockstep 100% with Obama on everything pertaining to civil liberties. Barack Obama says, we have no right to privacy because we have terrorists. I'm signing all of this stuff, including the NDAA, so not only can I spy on people, but I can assassinate them if I can link them somehow to terrorists. You, Mr. Mitt Romney, agreed with that wholeheartedly. During the second and third debate, you did nothing but agree with Obama. How the hell is anybody supposed to get motivated to vote if they have to choose between Tweedledee and Tweedledum? Makes no sense whatsoever. You people in the Tea Party, you say, I want to live in a free country. I say you have no idea what the hell that is based on who you're voting for, especially when it comes to stuff like the 4th Amendment, the 5th Amendment, the 10th Amendment. You cannot have a functioning America without sovereign states. You cannot have them without property rights. You cannot have them without right to a fair trial. I don't care what you have done. If we can give Ted Bundy a fair trial, we can give Al-Awlaki and his 16-year-old son a fair trial. You capture them, you put them into the courts, and you try them for whatever it is they have done wrong, nay, even treason. You do not just bomb people at will. There's going to be other people nearby that are going to get hurt or killed. They will have family members, and we are going to be dealing with hundreds of the people that you claim we're fighting against who attacked us on 9/11. Nay, thousands, tens of thousands. The number will grow exponentially for every single bomb dropped by every drone currently flying around in the northern border of Pakistan and Afghanistan. Number 3. Final point. Stop alienating liberty proponents in the party. I have been in the Republican Party now for several years. I categorize myself as a libertarian Republican because that's what I was before Ron Paul ran the first time. I determined months ago that there was no way possible that I would vote for Romney. Even Rand Paul, who I am behind 100%, just like I was his father, when he endorsed Romney, that didn't change anything for me. When you guys railroaded us, when you guys basically shut us out of the convention, you sealed your fate in Ohio and in Florida, as far as I'm concerned. The margins there are just close enough that we would have made the difference. And if you had been honorable and treated us better and still won, you probably would have pulled it out in those 2 states. You have nothing to blame for this turn of events but yourself. To the neocons, in closing, I'm not going anywhere. And the people that re-elected Justin Amash and elected all of the other people that are now in the Senate and the House that will be allies of Rand Paul and the others, they're not going away either. The people who took over the state parties in Nevada and Iowa, we're not going anywhere. We are in this party, and we are in this party to stay. You can either learn to work with us and to accept some of what we are telling you and be actual civil fellow party members, or you can pull more stunts like what you pulled in 2012, and you can continue to lose elections. And I promise you, I will not lose a second's sleep over it. I will pull the lever or push the button for whichever Gary Johnson, whatever, that runs in the Libertarian Party in 2016, and not think about it twice if I see the same kind of crap going on again. Mitt Romney loaded the party with his friends, and you know what? You're all a bunch of losers. You lost. Priebus, you should be canned immediately. I don't know why the heck the Republican Party put you in power in the first place. You did not preside over a single victory, and you just presided over, in my opinion, what is the most embarrassing loss in the history of the party. There is no way possible that you can justify losing this election given all of the opportunities that you had. In closing, to the rest of you out there, I'm not angry that Barack Obama won the election. In some respects, I think this is better for the liberty movement and for people who think like me, because one, not only is the Republican Party not able to basically, for lack of a better term, they are not able to have validated their tactics against us. But because of the way things turned out, they're going to be blaming a superstorm. They're going to be blaming the governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, and they're going to be blaming Rush Limbaugh. That's who I hear them whining about right now. They're not whining about us. I heard a couple of talk radio people mocking us. But the truth is that they're in the situation that they are precisely because of the attitude they have towards us. And if they don't want this to happen again, they'd better think twice about pulling what they pulled here. They had better kiss Rand Paul's behind and anybody else who sides with him. Now, the question that everybody has is, where do we go from here? I argue that the Republican Party is in complete shambles. They still have control of Congress, but they stand to lose it in 2 years if they keep going down the same path that they're going right now. If not 2 years, maybe 4 years. But eventually they will lose control of it. I mean, Michelle Bachmann barely managed to hold on to her seat, and she was supposedly really popular where she is. I have to admit I did send $50 to her opponent because of how mad I was at her. Lindsey Graham is up for re-election in 2 years, I believe. This is a golden opportunity to run a Liberty candidate and to get his ass out of there. This guy has got to go. It's a shame that we couldn't get rid of McCain 2 years ago, but we're stuck with him for a little while longer. Hopefully he's going to retire and then we'll be rid of him too. Then there are a few other neocons in the Senate and in the House that need to be gotten rid of, all in due time. The point is that this is just the beginning. And with Romney as president or Barack Obama as president, that doesn't change. You're either in this for the long haul or you're not in it. And that's all there is to say about it. Until next time, with prudence to myself and benevolence to all of you, good evening.